Welcome to Love Your Life After Divorce, the podcast where you'll learn everything you need to know to rebuild your life after divorce from the inside out. Let's dive in. Hey, friend, let me ask you a question. Have you been living your life as the main character or as a supporting character? Do you feel like you have usually taken center stage in your own life? Or are you more in the background or on the periphery? We've obviously all watched movies, TV shows, and read books, and so you understand the difference in main characters and supporting characters. And I think it's a really interesting way to look at our own lives and evaluate how we're living. So, when we think about a show or a book, there's always a main character, someone who's usually the most interesting character, who the plot focuses on, who has something usually that a lot of people want, like a sense of humor, beauty, bravery, intelligence, or strength. And then there are all the supporting characters who you don't really know as much about, and they just play a little different role that's not quite as big in the storyline. And so when you think about your own life, do you currently see yourself as the main character or as a side or supporting character? If you have main character energy, you are showing up in your life with confidence. You feel like you have a fair amount of control over your own life. You believe that it's okay for you to be the focus. You feel important enough to get your own needs met. You show up for yourself. You set and keep boundaries. You want to forge your own path, and you know that it's okay to do what's best for you. So, does this description sound like you? Or do you think that you have historically been the supporting character? If you're operating in this role, you're always taking care of other people. You're thinking about what the other people in your life might want or need. You focus on being the helper or the peacemaker. You're very aware of other people's feelings and preferences. And so I just want to encourage you to take a look not only at your life right now, but right now, just kind of look back over your life and take inventory of the different phases of your life and ask yourself that question of whether you were showing up in your life as the main character or the supporting character. Maybe when you were quite young, you remember being confident, outgoing, sure of yourself, willing to take risks or to stand up for yourself. But then maybe something happened in your life that just squashed that part of you a little bit. Maybe some teacher made a comment about how you were acting and how it was not acceptable. Maybe a parent disciplined you in a way that made you feel like it wasn't okay to show up that way. So you made yourself smaller. You changed yourself to meet other people's expectations. Or maybe you can honestly never remember feeling very confident when you were younger, as a younger child. But maybe when you became a teenager or a young adult, then you remember stepping into your own and really figuring out who you really wanted to be. When I look back at my own life as a young child, I was such a people pleaser. I remember just having this kind of overall feeling of being scared all the time. And I mean, my parents were not abusive, so I don't want to give you the wrong impression, but I don't know if it was a mixture. It was probably a mixture of my own personality and of how I was parented at the time. But I just remember wanting so badly not to make mistakes, not to get in trouble, to please my parents, to be a really good student, to get, accolades or praise for following the rules and doing a good job. I sometimes noticed my older sister getting in trouble for certain things. And that was like ding, ding, ding in my mind of like, don't do that because you don't want to be in trouble or get punished. And so, in my younger years, I would say I was definitely not living in my main character energy. As I got older into my teens, I definitely felt more confident, more expressive, but I was still really rigidly living in that space of trying to follow all the rules, of trying to be the perfect good girl, the girl that always got praised, always got good grades, whose parents were proud of her. And I mean, honestly, I feel like what I just described has really been most of my life. The vast majority of my life, I've lived that way. But when I went to college, it did feel markedly different. Like I know this is so silly. It almost makes me laugh to tell you guys this, but my freshman year in college, I remember thinking I was sitting in my dorm room and I thought, I could just walk down to the little Munchie Mart. That's what we called it, the Munchie Mart. It was like a little convenience store, kind of in the lobby of our dorm. And I remember thinking, I can just walk down to the Munchie Mart right now and buy myself a blueberry bagel because that sounds good to me. Like it was a newfound freedom that I had not had until I went to college and I was not being constantly monitored. And my parents weren't ridiculously strict. I wasn't living some newsworthy life of parental punishment or strictness, but my parents were definitely a lot more strict than a lot of other parents I knew. And so I didn't feel like I had a lot of freedom when I was living under their roof. And so I don't know, it was just interesting. It was fun. It was exciting. It was also kind of scary to be out more on my own, where I was making my own day to day decisions. Luckily, I didn't go off the rails and do anything wild and too crazy in college. I basically still towed the line, did what it was expected of me. I played soccer, so that made me have a little more structure or discipline or, stay away from a lot of partying and things like that. And I had to learn the hard way about studying, staying on top of my schoolwork because I was a procrastinator. But anyway, all that to say that I think that was the first time in my life that I really started making my own decisions. I mean, even things like after my freshman year playing soccer, I didn't get to play that much. I wasn't one of the best players on the team, and I'd come from high school where I was arguably the best player on the team, and so it was a big shift for me to show up to practice day in, day out and not get to play much at all in the games. And so, looking back on that, I think it felt like pretty much solely my decision of whether I wanted to continue playing after my freshman year. And I made the decision that I wanted to try my best. I wanted to work super hard over the summer between my freshman and sophomore years, and then, if I gave it my best and I still wasn't good enough to play, then I would quit the team. And looking back on that, that moment is one of the proudest of my life because I made a decision, I committed, I put in the work. I worked so hard that summer. Man, I vividly remember still just how it felt to sprint up that steep hill beside my parents' house over and over and over. So many sprints. Actually, what happened was I ended up earning a starting spot on my college soccer team when the year before I had hardly played at all. So that was a really proud moment for me. And I highlight that story just to say that I think that's one of the first examples of me living in my own main character energy because I thought about it, I decided what I wanted, I went after it, and I achieved it. And that felt amazing. But as we continue with my life's journey into young adulthood, I really stayed in that space of following all the rules and being the good girl and trying to be perfect and feeling like it was my job to help other people and to support my ex-husband. When I was married, I really lived in that space of I'm in the background and I'm doing everything else for everyone else in my life, especially my kids, which I know it's a little bit different when you have kids and they are literally helpless, tiny humans that can't do anything for themselves. But I just threw myself into parenting in a way that really probably wasn't the healthiest for me because I put all of my needs on the back burner. I mean, I went for months with hardly any sleep because I felt like my kids needed me at night, the whole 9 yards. I'm sure so many of you can relate. My point here is that I'm just trying to give you an example of my own life and in ways that you can evaluate your life. When you look back over the years, kind of break it down into phases, like when you were a young child, when you were a teenager, when you were maybe in college or a young adult, and then on into your adulthood. How were you showing up in your life? Did you feel like you were really the main character, that you could make your own decisions, that you could do what was best for you? Or did you really feel like you were there to serve other people? And specifically, I want you to think about your marriage. I mean, obviously, since this is a podcast for divorced women, I really want us to focus on that part of our lives. So, right now, whether you were married for 2 years or 20 years, I want you to think about how you showed up in your marriage. Was it more with that main character energy, or was it more with the supporting character energy? Were you constantly giving and meeting other people's needs? Or did you treat your needs as equally important to everyone else's? Did you feel like you were fading into the background while everyone else was shining? Were you constantly compromising or acting like your desires didn't really matter? Up to this point in your life, and specifically in your marriage, you may have been playing the supporting role. You possibly haven't been feeling like the main character in your own life for many years, or maybe even ever. Someone else has always been taking center stage while you are on the periphery. You have been taking a back seat in your own life, and you've been letting someone else or multiple people do the driving for you. And I just want to offer you today that now is the time for you to become the main character in your own life. No more fading, no more shrinking, no more disbelief in yourself, no more thinking that your needs don't matter. Now, I want to say that stepping into that main character energy looks a little different for everyone, but I think that there is one thing that is consistent. And that is that you focus on making decisions that are best for you. You live life intentionally and out loud. You take up space. You stop apologizing for simply being you. You stop shrinking and fitting into other people's boxes that they have built for you, their expectations. Now, I want to point out here, main character energy does not mean you are selfish. It doesn't mean you're inconsiderate or rude. It doesn't mean you hog the spotlight or you take advantage of other people. No, the truth is everyone is their main character in their life. Everyone is their own main character. You can be the main character in your life and also be kind and loving and giving. You can be any quality you want. But the point is that you decide you want to be that way. You stop living for other people. So if you look at your life right now and you're not the main character, then ask yourself, who is? Is it one person? Is it multiple people? You might feel like the main characters in your life right now are your kids. You may think that it's your boss because they dictate, your daily activities. You might even right now still feel like the main character in your life is your ex because you are letting him dictate how you think and how you feel and how you show up. And if that's you right now, I know for sure that you can learn how to show up in your main character energy. And I actually have an exercise that I would love for you to try. I want you to imagine yourself right now in your current circumstance in life showing up in your main character energy. If you felt confident, adventurous, grounded, aligned with the truest version of yourself, if you felt alive and free right now, how would you be living your life? So, what I want you to do is, I want you to use your imagination and your creativity. I want you to get really clear on who you would be right now if you were showing up to your life with main character energy. I'm going to ask you some very specific questions that I want you to consider. What clothes would you wear? How would you interact with your ex? How would you parent and discipline your kids? What car would you drive? What job would you have? What would your friendships be like? What kind of things would upset you? How would you handle conflict? How would you spend your free time? So these are just some examples of questions that I thought of that helped me explore and get into the creativity of imagining myself right now, but living in my full main character energy. So you can ask yourself any question you want, but I just want you to do this exercise. Ideally, it would be amazing if you could sit down with a pen and paper and answer these questions. And really, it only takes you 15 to 20 minutes, but I really encourage you to do this exercise so that you can fully envision yourself operating and living your life in full main character energy. So I did this for myself. And as I was writing it, I just felt this warmth spreading in my chest. I felt this energy shifting within me, and it made me feel excited and strong. So I just tell you that because I want you to know that this is a really powerful exercise, and I highly recommend that you try it. And I'm actually going to read you right now a little bit of what I wrote. And then I'm going to explain something that I noticed about myself as I was doing this exercise. So here's what I wrote down as I considered those questions that I just shared with you. And for me, you may or may not want to do it this way, but for me, it was helpful to speak about myself, my ideal future self, this version of me that's living in my full main character energy. It helped me to describe her in the third person. So I refer to her as she instead of I, because I think when I say I and I'm not quite there yet, it almost feels false. But when I use the third person and I refer to myself in the future as she, then I'm just envisioning this ideal version of myself. And so here's what I wrote. She takes up space. She's confident. Yet she's still kind, generous, caring, and thoughtful. She moves through the world with her head held high and her shoulders back. She shows genuine care for others and doesn't mind putting herself out there. She makes decisions based on whether it's best for her, in alignment with her values, and also takes into account the people she loves. She operates in abundance and believes the possibilities are endless. She is open to new adventures and willing to try new things. She loves learning and is open-minded and curious. She is honest, straightforward, but also soft and kind. She's not overly competitive with others, and she is totally okay being wrong. She has relationships with people who encourage her and inspire her to become a better version of herself. She feels challenged and loved by them. She dresses comfortably but stylish, classic, clean, crisp, but fluid. She owns what she wears and isn't self-conscious or apologetic. People are drawn to her because she's warm, welcoming, energetic, alive, content, graceful, and interesting. She enjoys getting to know people and cultivating relationships. She enjoys life and loves traveling, but she can have just as much fun on an exciting vacation as she can going to the zoo with her kids. Her outlook, her gratitude, and zest for life create her experiences, not external factors. She speaks with wisdom, but is not a know-it-all. She loves helping others and seeing them transform. She is like a Sherpa, guiding them through rough terrain with her expertise and skill. She encourages them when they feel like stopping and lets them lean on her a little while they build their strength. She is open and accepts those who are different from her. She values other cultures and cares about the oppressed. She is wealthy, but uses so much of her money to help others. She enjoys using her money to create experiences for her family and friends. She is powerful and benevolent. She doesn't allow anyone to manipulate her or use her. She easily detects falsehood and unkindness. She doesn't spend time trying to fix or control other people or convince them to treat her well. She drives a black Mercedes G-Wagon because she's a badass. She is organized and intentional with her time and work, but doesn't easily get stressed out or overwhelmed. She knows she has time to get it all done. She operates in the present moment and is all in on what she decides to do. She isn't afraid to try new things and let her creativity flow. She loves figuring out ways she can help more women. So that is what I wrote, and it felt amazing to envision myself living in that main character energy. And a lot of what I wrote, I feel like I already live out. I feel like in so many areas, I'm already living this way. But there are definitely areas of my life that I'm not fully living in my main character energy. There are ways that I'm still afraid. And when I think about it and I kind of take that overview of my life, like I encouraged you to do earlier, I was afraid for a lot of my life. I was afraid of making the wrong decisions. I was afraid of letting other people down. I was afraid of being a failure. I was afraid of other people's judgments and opinions of me. I've been so afraid of failing and doing things wrong that that's held me back for a lot of my life. And I'm tired of that. I don't want to live that way anymore. I don't want to live afraid. And so part of what it means to me to live in that main character energy is to stop living in fear. And before I explain further, I want to mention, I know I mentioned this black Mercedes G-Wagon that I want to drive. And what I want to point out to you here, and as you do this exercise, you may find the same thing to be true, but it's not so much that you are trying to attain or achieve these very specific goals or ideals for yourself or even lifestyle, choices. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily trying to achieve those. But what's important is to recognize why you want those things. Why do you want to dress the way you envision yourself dressing? Why do you want to drive the car that you envision yourself driving? And for me personally, that G-Wagon represents power and wealth. It represents being a boss, not afraid of anyone, being able to handle myself. And that goes back to what I just shared about my fear that I carried with me through most of my life. And so I think that's why the G-Wagon is so appealing to me because of what it represents, because how I think I would feel owning that car and driving it around. And that feeling is really what I'm after, not that exact car. I mean, I don't care how much money I make. I doubt I will ever think that it's a wise idea to pay that much money for a car. And so I'll probably never have one. And that's totally fine. That's not the point of this exercise. Like I said, you're not setting specific goals for yourself, but you're just imagining what your life would be like if you truly considered yourself the main character. And so I would love to hear what you uncover about yourself when you do this exercise. And if even the idea of doing this exercise seems completely out of your realm of possibility, if you sit down and try to do it and nothing comes up for you and you're just drawing a blank, you may not be ready for it yet. And that is totally fine. You may still be in that space of really recovering from your divorce. You may be in that space where you're still trying to come to terms with your own emotions. You're still trying to just survive. So when you're in that survival space, you may not yet be able to imagine this ideal future version of yourself that is living in this main character energy, and that's totally okay. But one day you will be ready for this exercise, and I want you to remember this episode and come back and listen to it again. Or if you are confused and wonder, why am I not able to imagine myself in this space? Then journal about that. Ask yourself, what is it about imagining myself being this type of main character that just feels so uncomfortable? Why is it not okay for me to even imagine myself living this way? And one thing I do want to offer, and I did mention before I read, what I wrote for myself, is that one thing I did notice as I was writing this, and I don't know if you guys picked up on it or not, but sometimes I would think about a certain characteristic that I really wanted to embody or embrace, but then I would feel myself feeling almost guilty, like, oh, but if I show up as super confident, then I'll come across bitchy. Or if I make decisions on what's best for me, then oh no, that means I'm just not caring about anyone else. And so what I noticed when I was writing this is that you can be two qualities at the same time. You can be kind and soft, but also honest and straightforward. I think a lot of times we were either taught, like overtly, or we were taught subtly that certain characteristics are not okay for women to have, and also that certain characteristics eclipse other ones, or like you can't be strong and also soft, that you can't be a leader, but also empathetic to other people. And that's just not true. And I noticed that kind of discomfort within myself as I was writing this down. So I just want to point that out to you and see if that also comes up for you, because we can be both things at the same time. It is entirely possible to be, two things that seem to be a little bit of opposite characteristics. We can be both. I fully believe that. And so I just encourage you to dream big, to really imagine this energized, alive, aligned, confident version of yourself. And just put all your creativity into this exercise and just imagine who you would be if you were the main character in your own life. What would be different about your life? And why would that be better? It's really exciting. I hope you guys enjoy the exercise as much as I did. And like I said, I seriously would love to hear from you to just hear what comes up for you when you do this. You can either email me at angie@angiewilsoncoaching.com, or you can message me on Instagram, Angie Wilson Coaching. So yeah, just have fun with this, experiment, allow yourself to be big, allow yourself to take up space. Stepping into this main character energy, I think is so important for us divorced women who have possibly been living in the shadows for many years, who have felt guilty for speaking up for what we need or what we want. And now is the exciting time for you to create that life that you love living after divorce. If you're feeling lost, overwhelmed, or unsure of how to move forward after your divorce, I've created a free guide just for you. It's called the 5 Stages of Divorce Recovery, and it lays out the roadmap to help you heal, rebuild, and love your life after divorce. This guide is packed with insights and actionable steps that will take you from grieving to embracing your future with confidence. Click the link in this podcast description, and the free guide will be delivered straight to your inbox.